you got to be kind of fit enough and fast enough to get through the terrain, and it's hard. Yeah, so I think the year that I finished, I've only done it once, and it was the first year that they had it on. I think it took, it took me 45 hours. So 45, it was a 200 Ks.
Yeah.
So days, but for 45 hours, it's a long couple of days.
Welcome along to the Lifting in Life podcast. I'm Cam. I'm the host. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. I'm a personal trainer, and I also work in IT. Today, I'm joined by Pat Bowring, or also known as Ultra Chef on the gram. He is an ultra runner from Aussie. He's a chef, and he also makes house music. In this episode, we dive into how he's able to pursue all these passions. Normally, we kind of pick one thing and maybe have one thing on the side, but he's able to pursue all three of these things and give a lot of his capacity, depending on obviously what's going on at the time. As well as exploring that, we learn more about his ultra running journey, how he found running, trail running specifically, and then also how he trains and fuels for ultra running events. Sometimes events spanning over days, not just hours or minutes, but days. As always, I appreciate you tuning in to the podcast, and any support you can show goes a long way, and it helps me keep getting these awesome people on. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and remember, you make you. All right. Pat, here we are, man. We made it happen. I appreciate you joining on your Sunday evening, man. I appreciate it.
All good, mate. All good.
Now, you're someone who does a lot of interesting things and pursues multiple passions. Because when I first started following you, I was like, oh, yeah, this guy's an ultra runner. And then I was like, oh, he's also a chef, hence the Ultra Chef. And I was like, damn, he also makes techno beats as well. I was like, okay. So when I thought about our podcast, I definitely want to get into the running stuff. Obviously, that's the fitness component to it. But where I thought we could start is you giving us a bit of an insight into these multiple passions that you pursue and how that kind of came about.
Yeah. I guess with the DJing stuff and the music and everything else I kind of do, I do coaching as well. So I'm sort of like training, working in a kitchen, doing coaching, doing some all that sort of stuff.
Damn, man, that's a lot.
I think I've always sort of been like my brain, I've always got a lot on. And I think, I don't know why, but as I get older, I've learnt to sort of like give each of them a little bit more space and not be so stressed out if I can't do one more than the other. And it's generally based on how much work I've got on, like physical work in a kitchen and family. So I'm doing, it seems like a lot. It's probably more than a lot of people would do. I managed to sort of fit it in based on what's more important at that time or that week or that month or whatever. Yeah.
I feel like typically people pursue maybe one main thing and might have a little hobby on the side or something, but it sounds like these take up quite big portions of your life, you know, like they're not just small little hobbies that you dabble in every now and then. It sounds like they're quite significant.
Yeah. Well, when I don't know with you, Cam, but obviously when people start having kids or when their life changes a little bit, you sort of you work out quite quickly what's sort of doable and what's not. So if there's a race on the horizon, that will take priority over any of my other kind of hobbies. But in the past, when I first had like heaps of work on, like I was running 3 restaurants, for example, at the one time as an executive chef, I didn't really have time for much else. And this is before I started doing the running and all that sort of stuff. But now, even though I'm not so focused on work, I still work full time. Instead of trying to have the training still be maximum with work, I've learnt to not get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and run out to the park to make that feel like I have to do that to fit the training in. You sort of I can miss a day of training, or I can shuffle it around where I won't do as much, knowing that with what I've done in the past, I can still make it happen.
Mm. So that's
Yeah.
something you've done in the past, is get up that
Oh,
early to fit it in.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I used to think that, if I miss a session, or the only way I can fit it in is doing stuff when people, like my family and stuff, are asleep,
Mm.
which I
Yeah.
still do. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's all about, with all those hobbies and the job and the passions and all that sort of stuff, I make it fit a little bit more smartly, so I'm not actually stressing myself or other people out.
Mm. One thing that I've kind of been thinking about lately is how when you actually slow down and don't do much, sometimes it actually makes you more tired. And it's when you're like,
Yeah,
it's like the movement creates the energy. Is that
yeah,
something that you find as well?
yeah, 100%.
Because I could imagine like you doing that much stuff. If you didn't like it, I would assume you'd probably stop. But it sounds like it almost energizes you in a way.
Yeah, it does. And I'm like you. Like if I have a holiday, it'll take me like at least maybe 3 to 4 days of not having to worry about like what's going on in the kitchen, what do I need to,
Mm.
what like my brain will just it'll keep going, but it'll take a while to actually relax. And yeah, it makes you feel like you almost fall in a heap, but you
Yeah.
stop you
Yeah.
stop.
And another element to it is that I feel like people are afraid of pursuing things that they might not be good at first, or maybe more specifically, they're afraid of pursuing things that might appear as if they're going against their kind of self-constructed identity. What would your thoughts and advice be on doing something like that? Because you're obviously not just a runner, you're not just a chef, or you're not just
Yeah,
a DJ. So
yeah.
what would your advice be on that, pursuing something against that might be against your identity?
Well, I suppose if you have a little passion for something that you want to try,
Mm,
you got to realize that everything that you want to get better at takes time and it takes work, and it may not be good for the first time you do it or the first week or two. But I get it a bit at work. People are getting into fitness. Some like chefs, they hear or they look at stuff that's going on, that mainly that I'm doing, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, and they hate running. They do. A lot of people will hate um, anything that's hard at the start. So I suppose my advice with that sort of stuff, if it does feel a bit against the grain, but you're doing it and you have that idea that you want to do it, stick at it for a bit before you sort of quit, because
mm.
yeah, sometimes when you start getting a little bit better or at it, or you learn something um, different, then you start to enjoy it more, and you can start getting better at what that thing is.
Yeah, and you're probably only in that learning phase for a short period of time, right?
Yeah,
It's not like you're going to be 5 years in still trying to learn how to run in the hills or something, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And to the extension to that identity piece, would you say that you doing multiple significant things in your life kind of helps build, I don't know, maybe more sort of rigidity in your identity or something, in the sense that, like, if you're just a runner, let's say,
Hmm.
my partner, she's a professional bikini bodybuilder and she went to a sports psychologist, and she
All
had
right.
this analogy like,
Hmm.
right now your pie is 90%
Yeah,
bodybuilding,
yeah,
whereas, so it's very fragile, right? You get injured, can't do bodybuilding,
yeah,
oh, who am I? Whereas
yeah.
for someone like you, it's more evenly dispersed. So would you say that it kind of helps build your identity and helps it be a bit stronger in that sense?
Yeah, I guess so. Like when I was um, really sort of new to running, and I only really started. I'm 45 this year, and I only started running at 30. So
Hmm.
I have been doing it for quite a while now. But when I first started, I sort of thought, because it was an answer to a lot of things um, that was going on. Like I needed to get fit or fitter, and it helped a lot with the mental. side of things. So I thought, you know, if I wasn't, you know, um, getting better at this, or if you know, like if a couple of my sponsors, like, I think about it a little bit. If your sponsors like drop you one day or whatever, does it? At the start, it was really important.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't say it's not important, because
Yeah.
I feel incredibly lucky and grateful for everything that happens. But yeah, I don't identify myself really um, as a runner or a DJ or a chef. Sometimes, you know, it doesn't. It's I don't. It's more so depending on who's really listening, I suppose. Like,
Yeah, on the context.
I'm a dad. You know,
Yeah.
if I'm with my mates on Saturday, Sunday, then I'm doing, you know, early morning runs and stuff, and then I'm a runner, but I'm more of a mate, I suppose. But
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. I think there was a lot more importance at the start, but now I'm sort of more comfortable with who I am as a person, rather than these things that I do. So yeah, if one of them goes, then I suppose it's going to be okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a big
Yeah.
catastrophe.
Nah, no. I know a lot of people. I was talking to my mate on the weekend who's quite up there in the ultra marathon sort of environment, and he's always traveling around the world and all that sort of stuff. And we were having a chat, and we basically were talking about these elite runners that you know, they're training so much, and it's their life, and you know, they don't have that, or they get injured. It's a massive deal.
Yeah.
And we were just saying, sort of versus on the experience of not training so much, or if, like I touched on before, if I miss a session or if I miss a day or whatever, these people that are training in that high sort of every day, 2 sessions, 3 days, 3 sessions a day, um, they would still be able to perform if they knocked it down, you know, even by half, and be
Yeah.
a little bit more less, you know, focused on it, but a bit more maybe possibly happy and healthy, you know.
Mm.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting, man. I've chatted to a few professional trail runners specifically, actually, who race in the Golden Trail series.
yeah,
And one of them in particular, at the time I chatted to her, she just had a DNF from a race. Might have even been the Chamonix race. I don't know which race it was, but she just had a DNF, and like she was going through such a tough time,
yeah,
and you could just see how significant that is. But
mm,
I suppose that's a trade-off, right? Like giving your all to something can
yeah,
also give you everything back in
yeah,
return.
yeah,
So it's the risk that you take. But yeah, I've seen that firsthand from athletes who are going through that tough time, and it's not easy, man. And it's a big
uh,
identity kind of thing. Like her in particular, she was thinking, who am I now? If I can't run, what
yeah,
have I got now when this
yeah,
is no longer an option?
yeah, yeah. Well, it really comes down to that, isn't it? It's everything or nothing.
Mm.
You don't, um, if you don't have anything else, if you hang,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But I don't know. Like, everyone's different, I suppose, and people probably don't. Some people don't have the luxury of maybe having a couple of things. Like, this is what they do.
yeah,
This is a full-time thing, and yeah, if something goes wrong, it affects them way differently than it would affect me. So I
yeah.
suppose I'm lucky in a way.
Yeah, that's good, man. Now, zooming into the running a little bit, you already alluded to how you started off with running when you were 30, and it sounds like you were going through a bit of a potentially a tough time. Maybe could you
Yeah.
zoom in on that a little bit and sort of
Oh,
expand on what it was like getting into trail running and why?
yeah. So I guess I started running because um, the job of hospitality, as you probably would know, and it's a very stressful environment, and I was doing probably way too much, and I'd probably been burning the candle at both ends for quite a while, not just in the kitchen but also out. So, you know, all the
Yeah.
bad come hand in hand with late night finishes, and
Hmm.
continue
Hmm.
on and on and on. Also, you know, when that flows into your spare time or your days off, um, it just got to a point where I had to make some drastic changes, or yeah, I would have been affecting more people around me. So
Yeah.
even though I was a high functioning um, chef, and I was, doing multiple things at multiple venues at the one time, I think really I wasn't really paying attention to what was most important in front of me. And when work does that, um, yeah, you've got to sort of take a bit of a look at yourself. And yeah, I sort of made a decision without going too much into it that it's time to make a change. And I sort of stopped drinking alcohol, stopped smoking a pack of cigarettes a day,
Yeah.
doing all that sort of party stuff that comes with that. And it didn't happen straight away. Like, it took me probably, maybe, I can't remember how long now, maybe a year of sort of falling back on the wagon, or off the wagon, or whatever you call it now. And at the time, I wasn't fitted. I wasn't doing any exercise. I think I was going to the gym a little bit, but that
Yeah.
sort of wasn't really comparable. It wasn't enough for me to make changes in what I was doing. I sort of had to replace, this massive sort of thing that was keeping me busy. And my brain, I suppose, my multiple things that I do now, I was basically just numbing it all, at the end of the night, because
Yeah.
it going, just shutting it down, drinking and,
Escaping.
yeah, just chilling out, sitting down, and just like, putting some downers on the app. And
Yep.
now,
Yep.
yeah. So I kind of got into running at that stage. Yeah, just around the block at the start. I remember I ran from here to Macca's.
Nice.
Yeah, it was like 2.5 Ks
Yeah.
back home, and I was like completely like so tired, red fat. And then yeah, it basically happened quite quickly. I reckon, like, maybe a year in, I sort of I I live near a national park, so I sort of did some road stuff, and then I noticed that there's some. I can see the mountain behind in my backyard, and I always liked it. And then I sort of found myself going up in there, doing some walks, putting some running in, getting lost a bit, making mistakes, not charging my phone, not taking a head torch, doing
Yeah.
all that a new does. Um, and then, yeah, I started getting fit, and I saw one of the local runs around here. I think it was a six K or 7K. I did that, and yeah, it sort of snowballed a bit from there. I was like, I can do this. And then I think from there, that was probably 2 or 3 months into my start of my fitness and running. Um, I don't know why. I think it was talk, or it might have been something I saw. I thought, let's do a marathon. So I think
Yeah.
3 or 4 months of training, sort of from the start to my first. And
That's very impressive, man. That's a
yeah,
quick turnaround.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I think
Damn.
I needed something. You
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
once but I made every mistake. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was. Now I talk to people, and I just tell them, like, just, I give them all the answers pretty much. They just have
Yeah.
to do it. But I was getting lost in the bush. I was getting dropped off down like 15 k's away from my house, and completely just going too fast. Like all those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's how I learnt, pretty much.
Mm.
And
It's
if I,
I was going to say, sorry, it's an interesting observation that you have there in terms of you were still very high functioning in your role and in your job, and
yeah,
yet you still decided to make a change. I feel like it's easy for people to still be very high functioning and assume that everything is good because that's one metric in my life I'm doing really well at. But
yeah,
yet there's still a whole nother heap of
oh,
things that you could
yeah.
potentially improve on. It almost feels like a spiritual kind of realization that you had there. You could be doing more with the life that you've been given.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
subconsciously, like, without knowing it, definitely, like,
mm,
now. But at the time, I didn't know what I was doing, really. I just knew that after a run, I felt good, and I was sleeping a bit better. And, yeah, I just especially being in the bush, like close
Mm,
to, yeah, like you just now I can just tap in like in 2 seconds, as soon
yeah,
as I'm in there, I've already found what I was trying to look for like ages ago. So you're right, but it didn't happen at the start. I didn't know what I was really doing, but gradually, step by step, I got there. But
yeah.
yeah, it's been quite a journey without getting
Mm,
too much into it. From where I was back then to where I am now, I feel great, and I
yeah.
feel, almost complete.
Mm, that's
Mm,
awesome, man. And
yeah.
reflecting on it a bit more deeply, what do you think running has taught you about yourself?
Oh, I mean, I've always known that I'm sort of determined if I put my mind to something. I've always been competitive.
Mhm.
Um, but it's just shown me that I can use something other than what I was doing as an outlet and be happy and not think that I probably need to be around people or you know um it's hard to explain, but now I just feel like it's taught me a bit of peace,
Yeah,
and you know it's pretty cool what you can do, you know with fitness and
yeah,
how it makes you feel. Yeah, it's just, especially I think there's two sides, the racing and the training. The racing is, it teaches me that I I can trust the process, and when it happens, when I am racing, I know now that things are gonna work because
yeah.
of training that I've put in. I'm confident. I've got that experience.
Mm,
I've learnt that about myself. Like I think it's a trust in my body, in my brain, the way um, I can stay relaxed and happy during a race is a real superpower.
yeah,
Um, but in the training, I work hard and I use it more as an escape rather than a time not to escape things, just to escape like thinking about stressful elements in my life or whatever. But
mm,
then on the flip side, when I'm racing, I'm kind of zoned in, and
mhm.
I've got this real just I can't really put my finger on it, but it's just a trust in myself that I know.
Yeah. You got the
It,
data to support it now, right? You time and
yeah,
time again, you've got the data in the bank
yeah,
to support the fact that you can
yeah.
do this thing and tick it off.
Yeah, whether it's a 50K and a 50 miler, a
Hmm.
100K, a
Yeah.
160K race, like I love it. So I think that really helps.
Do
I
you
love,
think it, yeah. Do you think an element of it too? Because I was thinking about like ultra running and you ultra running, and a big thing that we obviously have now is our phones, TV, all
yeah,
this stuff that like, acts as a distraction and always
mhm,
can occupy our attention no matter what. But when you're out running for 50K or 100K, whatever it may be, do you think an element of it there is that you're not being distracted by any form of technology? It's kind of just
yeah.
you, your running shoes, and the trees really that you're running through. Do you think that's an element of it?
Oh, definitely.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. For me, as soon as people would have an idea, but kitchens are very stressful.
yeah, yeah,
I'm working at the local here, and it is a destination point. It's fueled really by tourists, but in a normal quiet week, it's still a busy place. So it goes from busy to pretty much in control, but a little bit out of control because it's a massive operation. So as soon as I'm not there or I've taken some time off, I've got a leadership group there that I don't really have to stress about it. So as soon as I'm racing or I'm training or something, I'm usually definitely what you're saying. The element is unplugged. I'm not consciously, um, waiting for the next phone call or text about it, and it allows me to really enjoy, nature, silly things like wind or whatever it is when you get to the top of the hill, or the sound of leaves in autumn and all that sort of stuff that you learn to appreciate when you know you don't have the sound of docket machines
Yeah.
rolling.
It's like the practice of mindfulness.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's part of why I enjoy it so much, and why I feel I'm happy when I'm racing. A lot of people, I had a thing. We had a Golden Trail series. What you mentioned before
Oh
was
yeah, yeah.
a lot of people would know the place, but it's Tasmania. It's that little apple sort of shaped island at the bottom of
Yeah.
Australia. Yeah, they had a Golden Trail series there 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, and I was there, and I did the ultra distance, which was a 66, and I don't know what, I think it was maybe 40 k's in or something like that, and I was loving life, like really steep climb, and I was out of water. I sort of misjudged the aid stations, and I was like, oh, I've got to be a bit smarter here, but I got to at the top of the peak, and I saw this girl. I think she was in second position. I was coming up, and she was bawling, like crying.
Oh no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She run out of this. I've got no food, and I'm like, oh, come with me. We'll sort it out. I don't have any water at the moment, but like, oh. Anyway, we got to a photographer not long after, like on this peak, amazing place, Tassie, but it's called the Cathedral Ranges, I think it was part of the mountain. And we got some water, and I'm like, let's go catch the next girl, because she was gonna podium, and she didn't want to go as fast because we were going. She'll see you later. Anyway, I spoke to her after the race, and she's like, I can't believe how happy you were, like during that time. Like, she was crying, and I was like,
Yeah.
no, no, let's do, like I was like vibing, so I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm racing. My family's on course somewhere, like because most of my family are in Tasmania, so I had my cousins there. I was having a great day,
Mm.
and yeah, you can, like everyone has their ups and downs, I suppose, but yeah, I generally like to keep the vibe high.
Yeah,
Usually,
it's like a perspective thing almost too.
yeah,
I don't know anything about her, but you could imagine that maybe she hasn't been in a similar situation or a
yeah.
situation as stressful. So that was, the pinnacle of stress for her. Whereas for you, it's like, oh, this is another day. I mucked up. I'll get some water at the next stop.
Yeah, I was so thankful that the guy had water. Like, I
Yeah,
was literally like, if I didn't, I wouldn't have been that happy for that long, because I would have bombed.
yeah,
It's always that really super fine line where when I'm racing, I'll be on the edge, but I don't want to bomb, but I still want to be happy. So that energy is like up there, but
mm,
that's usually fueled with liquid nutrition and food. Like, if I say,
yeah,
like, time to eat.
yeah. What kind of temperature was it there during that race?
It wasn't too bad. It was low 20s.
Oh, okay. But still, when
Yeah,
you're moving though, that's still you can still get
yeah.
pretty hot even at that temperature.
Well, could have been a lot worse. Yeah,
Yeah,
March,
yeah, yeah.
Tassie, because the ozone layer is like pretty much above you. If it's 25, it feels like 30. You know,
Yeah, man.
really
That,
exposed.
that's what we noticed from NZ versus here. You can be out in the sun for ages over here and not get sunburnt. Whereas back home, you're in the sun for an hour and you get roasted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And in terms of your training for your ultras, what does a typical training week look like for you? And maybe also, how has that evolved over time as well
yeah,
from when you first started for that
yeah,
first 2.5K run to Macca's?
yeah. I suppose at the time I didn't really know what I was doing. So a couple of mistakes I was making was definitely the nutrition side of things. Definitely the amount of running I was doing. I remember, for example, for one of my first 100K race, I thought it was a smart idea to run 70Ks, like on a training run.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and I got through fine, but if fast forward to now, I'm still doing my long runs, but they're nowhere near the distance all
Mhm.
time. So my typical week, um, these days. would be probably a lot like a lot of other athletes. There, I generally run five days would be probably minimum now, but I before Tassie, I was doing for the first time actually, I was running 7 days, but um, for the 2 easy days that I would normally have a rest day, I
Mhm.
was doing easy runs with my dog. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, so she needs a run every day. So I'll do like maybe a 3K really easy run, 3 to 5K on those 2 days, and I do 2 sessions. So I do out of those 5 days, I do two sessions and one long run. So those 2 sessions would either be, well, they would be a flattish tempo interval style session, um, and the other session day, which they wouldn't be together unless I've stuffed up something away with everything else that's going on. I think I did it once actually. Would be a hill day. So
Mm.
generally the same sort of structure as in intervals, but they all depend on what event I was training for.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
is that quite a key difference between, say, just training for a marathon and training for trail running? Is that you need to get the hills in there as well?
yeah,
Because that wouldn't be typical of someone who's just wanting to run a marathon, but you kind of need that strength, right? In order
yeah,
to pull yourself up the hill and be able to control your way down too.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Some of the you wouldn't be doing this in a marathon training, but say I was training for a 100K race, which I generally do maybe at least one a year. Um, I would be doing hills, and the hills would be with added hiking because
Yeah.
during the race it is going to be quite. You generally would have probably half. When I say half, if it's 100K, usually 5,000 meters of climbing, which is quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. So instead of having like a runnable hill that you might do some strides on for a marathon, might be a 30-second, 1 minute or 2 minute uphills to get that strength. Mine would start off as a runnable hill, and then as my weeks progress, it would change into alternating between running, finding a flatter spot, then hiking the steeper parts, and then running again. So it might be instead of doing those 30-second, 2 minute intervals, it would generally go like 5 to 10 to 12 minute of for one rep for each climbing distance,
Yeah.
um, and they'd be hiking, and then like you might add some weight. You might start wearing your pack, your race kit closer to, say, if you're 4 weeks out, your biggest load. You might loading week. You might have your mandatory gear on that you're going to wear on race day, so this is how it's going to feel. You get used to it before, rather than rocking up to a race and then putting it on and thinking, "Wow, this feels a bit heavy."
This
With
is
all,
heavy. Yeah. How heavy would it? How heavy would the weight of your pack and your gear typically
uh,
be on the day? Because you try and
I
be as
think
light as possible, right?
yeah, there's mandatory gear
Yeah,
generally for weather wise and safety.
yeah.
I think the heaviest pack I've had was I'd probably do it a bit differently now, but I think it was maybe 7 8 kilos.
Yeah.
That was for a race. You should look it up. It's called Down Under. If you
Oh
haven't
yeah.
heard of
No, I
it,
haven't heard of that one.
it's basically have you heard of the Barkley marathons?
Yeah, yeah, man. Oh, I've watched so many YouTube
Yeah.
videos on that.
So
It's
it's kind of like that with
yeah,
the rate. So
yeah.
you have to qualify, um, and generally, I think the best year they've had 5 finishes. I think that's
Wow.
their best year, and it's tight because of the terrain, and it's tight because of cutoffs, and yeah, it really depends on weather.
Yeah. What's the race format? It's not like the
Uh,
find a page from the book kind of thing, or
no, no, but you do have to take a page from the book. I think. Oh no, that's another race, hut to hut. But this one, no, you got to be kind of fit enough and fast enough to get through the terrain, and it's
yeah,
hard.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, very hard. Yeah, so I think the year that I finished, I've only done it once, and it was the first year that they had it on. I think it took. Oh, I know it took me 45 hours. So 45. It was a
Damn.
200 k's.
Yeah.
So k's, but for 45 hours, it's a long couple of days. Yeah.
Did you sleep at all in that time?
I slept twice. I
Hmm.
slept. I went into an aid station, and it was after 24 hours of running, and I was like, "Oh, I need a kip here." So I had like, um, I think I think I had 20 minutes,
Yeah.
and then yeah, got up, kept going, and then I was with my mate in the middle of the night, and I was like, it was the second night, and I was like, "Man, I've got to go to sleep." Like I'm like, because it's sleep deprivation because
Yeah.
you're using so much energy the whole time. Um, yeah, your brain's just not where it should be, and like things start to breathe. It's like hallucinogens, like
Yeah.
sleep deprivation. Um, so yeah, so I needed to sleep, but yeah, that was a funny thing. I was with one of my best mates, Mick, and I said I got to go to sleep. I put my buff over my eyes, leant up against a tree, and I said, "Wake me up in 10 minutes." So that was a 10-minute sleep. But when he woke me up, he told me, and I remember he just he was like, Pat, time to wake up, and I wasn't like there, and he just ripped the buff off, and I woke up, and I amazing like, and I couldn't say anything because the whole thing was black, so I thought I was like dead. I didn't know,
Oh shit. Yeah.
work out what was going on, and it took me a couple of seconds, and he's like, mate, we got to go, kind of thing. I'm like, all right, cool. So yeah, that was a bit trippy, but yeah, twice
Whoa.
that, but I made it. I got to the end in time, so it was all
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah, what is it like finishing a race like that, pushing through that? It's not just physical pain
Oh,
or exhaustion, it's like delirium and
yeah.
pushing through sleep deprivation. How does it feel to complete something like that?
Oh, it feels amazing. It
Yeah.
really feels good that you can. And it was the first year, so no one knew if it could be done or not. And it looked hard on paper, really hard. So I wanted a challenge. So I was kind of doing the hardest things I could, race wise in Australia to get, and that was the next challenge. So I was like, okay, I got that, but yeah, I don't think I'll ever go back and do it again.
Yeah, man, that sounds
Yeah,
intense. I
yeah,
watched some of the most recent like YouTube videos coming out from the Barclay, and that
yeah,
did they have a record number of finishes this year, right? And they had was it the first female finisher too? I
yeah,
think they had, right?
yeah, amazing.
It just looks
Oh, it's so
ruthless, man.
that last like you can't really tell, but like where she's coming up to the gate,
Mm.
it it's a hill, like so it looks like she's going quite slowly, but she's like having to run up this last little bit, and with second there, like I can't, like it's just amazing.
Yeah, to have
Like
seconds
what
to
what
spare
she's
on a
oh yeah,
race that's like days as well. It's
yeah, yeah,
I
5
don't
loops,
know, man. Yeah.
insane. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty cool, all right. And
Yeah.
now, after covering a bit of your training, what does the nutrition component of your training and nutrition look like? Is it just an assumption that I assume that you eat really nice meals because you're a chef, or is that not right?
Well, I do at work,
Yeah.
like, yeah, like I eat quite
Yeah.
honest. Hopefully the owner of the hotel doesn't see this, but every time he comes in, I'm probably eating anyway. But
Yeah.
yeah, because I train a lot, and I generally eat a lot anyway, so it could be anything during the day, like when I'm working outside training. So my training will generally be in the afternoon, or morning. So when I'm training, I don't really have anything apart from water, and then on my long runs, um, I will I will start adding in some protein. I'll have some like a bar, or I'll have some cut up fruit along the way. I stay away from gels
Yeah.
unless I'm racing. I do use them when I'm racing.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I keep it kind of simple, but I've done. I know what I'm pretty lucky. I suppose some people are very unlucky with what they can have when they're running and when they're racing. They can get upset stomachs and stuff like that. I haven't really had anything like that, so I suppose I'm lucky. But when I do race, compared to keeping it quite simple, I have a quite a automatic routine now that I don't really have to think about. But I make sandwiches because generally it's gonna be a 10+ hour race. It could be plus 20 hour. So I
Yep.
like to have solid food. So that'll be um, a mixture of bars or dates that are covered with coconut.
Oh,
It'll
nice.
be cut fruit always. So I'll have a mixture of apple, strawberries, raspberries, oranges, just basically all portioned out. And I'll have them at aid stations as well because I find that sort of natural sort of sugar to be quite good and even in my stomach. Um, and yeah, I'll have some gels here and there, and basically just top up with electrolytes and water as I go along. And then when I get to aid stations, I basically just have whatever
Yep.
whatever I'm feeling like, some chips or chocolate, or with these bigger races, they might have, you know, I remember having some wood-fired pizzas and some noodles,
Oh, nice.
uh, some of the races are amazing, like aid
Yeah.
stations. Yeah, I guess I'm lucky because I can have anything during a race.
Yeah, it's so dependent on the individual, right? Like I've talked to quite a few endurance athletes now, and there's such a range from people who only have liquid the whole race
Yeah.
to people like you
Mm.
who's kind of like anything kind of goes within reason. It seems like you almost got to test it out and see what works for you, like trial and error almost.
Yeah, definitely. I think the faster you go, or the shorter the distance or race that you're doing, is you need less of that whole food. It might be liquid based, it might be just gels, it might be just water and electrolytes. You can get it done, but with these longer distance, mainly, I have to eat like more whole foods and long burning sort of carbs sort of stuff, so I can be sustained during those long periods on your feet. So
Mm,
yeah, couldn't just do it with
no, no,
liquid and
that's not good. Yeah.
not.
Yeah, I just thought actually, in terms of your going back to your training, do you do any kind of weight or any type of resistance training as strengthening for your running as well, or is it just running that you do?
I get to the gym probably 3 times a week.
Oh yeah,
Um, the last race that I did, and it's at night time after I finish work. I got like a 24-hour gym kind of near work, and I know that everyone's going to be in bed, so I just go as soon as I finish work. I go there and I'll do. Um, I'll have a training block for strength and conditioning as well.
yeah,
Um, but the last race that I trained for, the Golden Trail Series at Kanungi, I said I was running 7 days a week, and I was, but I probably jammed in 7 weeks of training for a race, and usually I would like to have about three months. Um, so I was doing more gym, I reckon, than I normally would. Um, but I found when I was racing, on the climbs and stuff, I just didn't feel like fatigue. So I mean, it's just concreted in my mind how much. And I've been doing strength conditioning for probably at least 3 years now, and
mm,
adding that to my running, it's you, it's I would not be training for a race without doing gym work
yeah.
now.
So the
No.
transfer is so tangible.
Oh, especially with the hiking and the strength and all the small little twitch muscles that you use. If you're balancing or you're doing all your one-legged, RDLs and all that sort of stuff, and yeah, it just helps, and you can feel it like when you're stepping up on a climb or undulating sort of terrain. All your different without gym work. I don't think well, I know now that I would never, I probably wouldn't be as strong, or I'd probably start finding maybe my pace getting a bit slower, or not being able to sort of perform at that top end,
Mm,
and probably might even overcompensate with the running side of things. So if anything, that's come out with that for the last 3 years, and it did take an injury like 3 years ago to find out, I've got to start doing strength, which I suppose a lot of people do.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I wouldn't be as strong, or I'd be probably stressing trying to find the time to do more running to think, I've got to have this, volume, rather than knowing that if I go to the gym, I can drop a day of running really and
Yeah.
still get my fatigued and stronger.
Yeah,
So
and like obviously going up a steep hill does get the
yeah,
heart rate up, but
yeah,
intuitively it seems like it would be a lot more about the muscles, like a lactate threshold kind of thing, and the strength to be able to just keep pulling you up a steep hill.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
me and my
And downhills are the ones that kill you. It's
yeah,
not so much your quads are like, if you start feeling it like in a race, it's generally on the downhills.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. Actually, we did the root burn, great walk in New Zealand a couple of years ago,
yeah,
like big
yeah,
packs on, and the
yeah,
downhills because it was really rocky too, so it was like almost doing big step downs, and my
yeah,
legs were wrecked
yeah,
by it was like an hour descent tramping down, and my legs were wrecked. Whereas you would think that, oh yeah, finally we're walking downhill, this is nice, but it's not,
yeah.
man. It can be really hard going.
Yeah, those step downs or lateral step downs on boxes to the side and behind you with one leg, they're amazing.
Yeah.
They're really good, and they're starting to add weight and onto your shoulders and stuff like that. I no doubt they help with all that sort of. They translate quite well to running.
Mm, yeah.
Mm.
What was that injury that you got that sparked
I got
your desire to get
yeah,
into weights?
yeah, I got sort of overtraining sort of tendonitis in my sort of hammy sort of
Oh yeah,
glute.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so it was more so strengthening the hips and the glutes during. So I got a coach and did it. It was during COVID actually, so I was quite lucky because there wasn't any racing. But I was doing sort of I think at least four strength sessions a week,
Oh
and
wow.
so just really rebuilt my body. And yeah, it was probably the best thing that's happened to me, really.
Mm. 'Cause I could
Mm.
imagine that people who are really into running would rather run than do weights. I mean, well, people I've had on the podcast have said that like verbatim. They're like, I'd much rather be out running than in the gym lifting weights. But you can see
Yeah,
how they work hand in hand with each other. That's going to actually
yeah,
help you be better at running.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I love both now. So
And in terms of this year, what have you got on the cards coming up?
I literally don't have any.
No, nothing. I thought you were going to have a big list of things.
Last year, I ran Alpine Challenge in April, and I was lucky to win that. I didn't do anything for the rest of the year. Um, but I didn't have that drive. Like, it's not that I didn't have that drive. I don't know. I just sort of like, before that, I think I was doing, 4 or 5 races a year, and I really want to get back into that. But Um, at the moment, like I sort of targeted that race. I'm really super busy at work where I am from that November to February period,
Yeah.
and there's nothing I can do during. I can't race during that time. Like I know that, and if I had a race like I did a couple of weeks ago, I'll just grab the door. One
Yeah,
second.
yeah, yeah, you're good.
Ah, sorry, mate.
No, you're good.
Yeah. I sort of, yeah, so the race was in April, so I only had 7 weeks, so I had to get a little bit creative.
Yeah.
So with the gym, with the 7 days, and I was doing a couple of double days. So the double days would be me running with my dog in the morning, and then me getting out in the afternoon for um, on my break for that race, so to train. So
Just
that was a
doing what you
compact,
can to make it happen.
yeah, and running well. So.
Yeah.
Uh, Yeah, it's sort of, I don't have anything booked. I might go up and do a couple of the other Golden Trail series because Salomon are sponsoring it, so I'm lucky enough to get some entries if I want
Yeah.
to enter.
So that would be
Um,
by up, do you mean in Europe, in the Northern Hemisphere?
no, so there's 4 in Australia.
Oh, is there? Oh, that's quite a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah. So they're giving
Mm,
away. So you can. It's a points base.
right.
So whoever is the going to be the winner, and they just do it for the short course. So
Mm,
it's I think they're roughly around 20 to 25 k's these races.
yeah.
Um, and then whoever wins in the points base, they give free entries for Europe and
Oh, man.
America or wherever it's held.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yes,
epic.
I got to the Brisbane one,
Yeah.
but I'm not quite sure. But I will definitely be doing another 100K or 100 miler later in the year when there's a season, usually from October, November.
Yeah. Epic,
Oh,
man. Well, if
yeah.
people do want to follow your journey and see what you're up to, where is the best place for people to find you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram under ultra_chef.
Yeah.
Um, I have Strava with the same name if they want to see the training and how I do fit everything in. And if they want to hear some pretty good house music, they can
Yeah.
follow me on SoundCloud, and that's under my name, Pat Bowring. But I usually have links on my Instagram and stories going, which I will find more time to do some more mixes, and they're really good to listen. When you're doing your training or cycling or your long runs and all that sort of stuff, because they're generally an hour, 2 hours long. So,
Yeah, I'd recommend that too. I was listening to some of your beats. I enjoyed
oh,
music, so I was liking it, man. Yeah.
it's good hobby.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I personally enjoyed that, learning more about your story. So appreciate your
Yeah,
time today, man.
you too, mate. It's been great.